Welcome to the Stock Market Starters YouTube channel. I'm really excited because today we are looking at another real life investment analysis and example. Today we're talking about Main Street Capital Corporation, and we're going to be looking at technicals. We are going to be looking at fundamentals, how to find them, what they mean, and we're going to be graphing and comparing it with some of these other companies that we've been looking at. So let's hop in here. I'm excited because as you can see here on the daily chart, Main is dropping today. That to me is exciting, right? That makes me want to invest more because, well, you'll see why, but because when stocks are dropping, that means they're becoming cheaper, which means I can buy them at a discount. And investing, that is a fantastic thing for investments when you see stocks dropping. So let's hop in and start looking at what the technos look like here on Main. So obviously we can see today it is dropping down pretty strongly. That's pretty cool to see. It's not the biggest drop we've ever seen, but a good little drop here down below the 50-day. If it gets below here, definitely some room to drop some more. So probably not the best buy point today, but not entirely shocking when we see the S&P here is dropping below the 50-day, now down almost 70 points on the day. So we're dropping. It's a day to move down, it seems. But overall, looking at the last year of action on Main, we've generally been moving up, right? So we can see this year stock prices increasing. Had a little bit of a pullback here, right? Definitely through here with the S&P pulling back through this. Didn't recover like the S&P did, which was interesting to see. But investing, we look at a longer term buying and holding perspective. So of course, in Main, we're going to look at a longer term investment potential. This is a 3-year chart showing weekly candlesticks. So each one of these candlesticks, right, like this, shows the entire week rather than just for a single day. And we can see really something kind of interesting. We can see there was a bit of a downtrend going on here, right? Kind of came in, oops, not there, kind of came in to contact with a little bit of an uptrend, which ended up breaking out the downtrend. Now it was really moving up very, very sharply. I think we've broken down from that, right? So we're not really in this big weekly uptrend. To me, the future, technically speaking, on this has some room to drop if the S&P wants to drop. Now, if not, it could very easily recover this here, which is a 20-week, and move up into the future. But overall, we're seeing pretty stable movement. Now, I mean, you see some big moves for sure, right? Like this big move over, 50 days, you got a 35% move. And then the let's see, next 50 days, you get another 30% move to the downside, right? So, and then here in a few weeks, you get a 23% move up, right? Like there are big, big moves that happen in this stock. But overall, right, it's not all over the place. It's not up and down like crazy. It's kind of showing a trend even on the weekly. So that's kind of cool to see. So I'll pop this back to daily, and then we'll go and start looking into the technical or into the fundamentals now that we can see the technicals and kind of understand that. So to figure out, fundamental analysis, I've been doing these, right? Hopefully you've been tracking with seeing these. But we start with looking at, a company's financial information. I find a lot of that financial information on Yahoo Finance, right? So finance.yahoo.com. Then I just look up the ticker symbol, which in this case was Main. So we can see some things here. Now, all this is great, right? There's news reports here, there's all this stuff. But the question is what we want to use. Now, I went through, and if you didn't see this, go check out my YouTube video talking about, important key fundamental analysis numbers. That's where I got a lot of these from. Well, actually, I think that's where all of these I think I talk about in there. Maybe some others as well. But we're looking for a couple key things. We're looking at first at market cap and enterprise value, or EV. What that basically tells us is the overall size of the company, and we can find those on Yahoo Finance. So market cap, we can see intraday market cap 4.264 billion. 4.264 billion. Now, right, huge number. It sounds like a big number, but that basically is saying, hey, here's what the current market is saying that the company's worth. Interesting to note that that is much, much smaller than these other companies that we've seen. So a lot smaller company, still a $4 billion company though, right? Still not tiny. Next, we want to look at EV, enterprise value. Now that is not calculated here. That is shown in this statistics, and it shows them as of the day before. Enterprise value, not shown. I don't know why enterprise value isn't shown here. But whoop-de-doo. Sometimes these aren't right. I did notice too, dividend yield is wrong on Yahoo Finance here. So we'll look at this. I'll explain why too. But first we want to find MAIN enterprise value and see what Google has to tell us. Yeah. Okay, fine. Let's put this in caps and see if that helps. Enterprise value of Main Street Capital enterprise value. This is what I want right here. I may have to just look it up by the full name. Street Capital enterprise value. Yeah, okay, well, that's market capitalization. They're saying 4.24 billion. I don't know if I believe that though. We've got this here we can look at, which may be the same as this. Okay, well, I'm not interested in that. There we go. Let's see. We saw that one. Main Street Capital. Okay, so this is from their website. Let's go. Market screen. Okay, good. So then we can get a few and we can kind of compare them and see what makes sense. So this one, close that. EV. Okay, enterprise value. So this one is saying 6.428 billion, right? So I'm gonna write that down, 6.428 billion, which makes sense that it's higher. That's fine. And so then we'll kind of compare 6.428 billion to, what am I looking for? Looking for not market cap. We have market cap. I want EV, enterprise value, market cap, earnings per share. See, what's funny, like there's all sorts of things that you can look at on here to find. Yeah, see, this is showing market cap. Find company financial information, right? This is off of the actual Main Street Capital Corporation website, right? And a lot of websites will do this actually. I've done some security analysis, security just meaning stock analysis on things and looked at specific companies information that they actually post on their own site, which is kind of interesting to see, kind of cool. Quarterly dividends per share. Oh, that's interesting. Look at that. Their dividends per share have been rising since 2008. So that's cool. But share cumulative dividend, that's fine. Okay, so we can look more in there, but that doesn't have the one I want shown right on top. Looking again for enterprise value. Enterprise value 4.31 billion, which they're saying is the same as the market cap. So I don't know if I believe them, but okay, so enterprise value might be a little lower than it's showing here. Okay, enterprise value quarterly and annually. Okay, so this is cool. So 2023, they're showing 5.3 billion average, median, minimum, max. So this is kind of cool. It shows their enterprise value going up over time. 5.3. So I would say we got a 6.4. We got a couple 4.3. We got a 5.3. So I'm going to put it at like 5.5 billion. And at the end of this, I'll just put billion ish, right? Because we noticed that's, hey, that's not quite right necessarily, but it gives us a good idea. So what do these two numbers really tell us? And the reason I'm not super picky about this, right? We could go figure it out. We could go build the enterprise value if we need to. We could do it. But the reason I'm not real picky about it is because the whole idea here is this company big enough, right? Are they going to disappear? A $4 billion, $5 billion company? Now that's a pretty big company. And then they're fine. And truthfully, a Main Street Capital is not as well known. But equity capital, so they do buyouts, refinancing, real estate planning, management buyouts, industry consolidation, emerging growth. They provide debt capital, so they basically sell loans. Basically, I think is what this is saying. So that's kind of interesting to see. This would also be interesting to see too, to see Street Capital Corp, debt analysis. I wanted to see. Well, let's just look up Main Street Capital Corporation, and let's find their website real quick. And then we can see, yep, mainstreetcapital.com. Perfect. So we can see, hey, they're a true financial partner and they've got their website. Flexible private equity and debt capital solutions. Yep. So that's kind of cool. So they do Main Street, not Wall Street. Yeah, yeah. So they do loans and stuff. That's pretty cool. Customized capital solutions for specific types of companies. You guys don't really need to understand all of this. Really, it's not terribly important, but it is really important to know, hey, what is this company, right? And get a good idea. I have looked at this before, but I kind of want to show you how to find this information because, Main Street Capital, this is not as well known a company as like Ford, as General Motor, as, even Kraft Heinz, Kraft Ketchup and all that. So, kind of interesting. Anyway, back to our analysis. Next thing we're looking for here is beta. And beta will have a 5-year monthly here at 1.3. So we got 1.30. So, every 1% that the market moves, we expect Main Street to move about 1.3%. So that's pretty cool. PE ratio is our next one. So price to earnings, and we want trailing 12 months. So that's good. 9.14. So $9.14. What that means is that for every dollar of earnings, investors are currently willing to pay $9.14 per share. That's actually one of the lower ones we've seen. General Motors from our last video was a little bit lower, but the others that we've seen have been higher, right? Ford a little bit higher, KHC quite a bit higher, and Verizon a bit higher as well. Which just means that you're paying more for each dollar of earnings that the company owns per share. So that's kind of interesting to note. Next, we're going to look at the PEG ratio. So, right, price to earnings growth ratio. So, what do you pay? Yep, 5-year expected. See, that's interesting. This just doesn't have all the information right on Yahoo Finance here. But that's okay, right? We can look it up. So, not a huge deal, but Main Street Capital Corporation PEG ratio. And let's see what we get. Price to earnings. Yeah. But I want not the PE. I want PEG. Where is the PEG ratio? Forward PE. This might have it. Let's look here. Macro Trends is a decent company that I've used before. This one seems to be showing it. Dax is fine, although this, yeah, maybe this will have it. Okay, well, let's see what we got between these three. Market cap, enterprise value, right? 6.49, so that's pretty cool to see. Stockanalysis.com. I don't know. I haven't been on this site really a lot before, but PEG ratio is what I'm looking for. Price to earnings growth. Where are we at? Aha. PEG ratio NA. I don't know why. Huh. That's kind of interesting. Price earnings growth ratio. I don't know why they would say it's not applicable. Okay, well, let's see what we got in those. Price ratios. Yes, I don't understand what it can be defined as. Ratios, PE ratio. Huh, maybe they're saying there is no PEG. Why would that be the case? That's really, really interesting. That's PE ratios, and that's fine, but not what I'm really interested in. Yeah, 9.25. That's so weird. PEG ratio. Trailing 12 months. Yeah, but yeah, that's so interesting. They're still saying not applicable. I don't know why that is. Why would a PEG ratio? I'm just curious about this. I'll skip over it if we can't find it, but it's kind of weird. Labeled as not applicable. That's so strange. That's funny. Negative earnings. Yeah, they could have negative earnings, negative growth projections, bad estimates. That's something that we've talked about before. Negative growth. That's so interesting. Negative earnings or negative growth. Okay, so let's see what their earnings are. Because if we want to know, let's just do earnings. Yeah, not the stock price. Okay, I mean, this does not look like they're going to have negative earnings. My earnings calls, beat, this. That's fine, though. Yeah, I mean, that's not negative. Huh. So I don't know why this is future growth rate. I don't know why this is, yep. Okay, this is what's going on. Well, maybe. This could be what's going on anyway. Growth is expected to decline by 9.7%. That actually does not mean that the company's going down. It means they're going to grow at a negative rate. So they're not going to grow more, right? Which is interesting. Margins. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of interesting. Revenues are going up. I don't know. Um, huh. Growth rate is expected to be negative. So that could be the case. But this is, saying 5.1% growth rate. So I don't know. That's kind of interesting to see. So I'm gonna put on the PEG ratio, we're gonna put NA. Sounds like there could be negative growth expectations. Now, that may or may not end up actually being true, but something we very, very much want to be aware of. And something that I might tend to stick like kind of shy away from the company because of. So really interesting. And I didn't expect that. I didn't know that that was going to be a thing to see today, but it's interesting to see that, hey, as we start digging into this stuff, we might find some interesting stories. So anyway, next we want earnings per share. So earnings per share, EPS. Okay, well that's easy, right? That's there. 5.36. So $5.36 is how much the company is making per share of stock that they sell. So that's pretty cool. That is a fairly high number, right? Lower than GM yesterday. GM kind of had some pretty good numbers yesterday. But higher than Ford, KHC, or Verizon. So interesting to see. Next, we want to look at dividend yield. Now, this dividend yield is wrong, and I'll show you exactly why. So this shows a 2.09% dividend yield, shows $1.04. Now, what's interesting is we look and we can see dividends on Thinkorswim. So we see, hey, 24 cents. This is going to be about that. 24 and a half cents, 24 cents, 24 cents, 24 cents, 24 cents. What's interesting is this pays dividends more than each quarter. What this number is from is, I think what they did is they said, hey, what's your dividend payment? And they just multiplied it by 4 to get the annual dividend yield, which is not actually right. So watch this. I'll show you because it's not just me saying it. Like, check this out. If we do main dividend yield, you'll see actually annual dividend yield of 6.06% with a 74-cent quarterly dividend amount, which kind of makes sense when we see, hey, every month basically they're paying out a 24-cent dividend, 3 months and a quarter. Yeah, okay, 74 cents, sure, right? That makes sense. So, yeah, kind of wild to see that, but dividend yield 6.06%. So we'll put that in there, 6.06%, and this is where, right, like I'm hoping that these videos are helpful because they'll show you guys, hey, if you look at this number and it doesn't make sense, like, hey, there might be something off with that, right? We had one of those yesterday on GM that didn't make sense. I think it was, which one was it? EPS or EBITDA? Not EBITDA. It was something like EPS or PE ratio or something like that. It was just a little weird on it and didn't quite make sense. And we looked into it and found out, that's probably not right. Same as with this one. Obviously, we're having some similar things with the one site Yahoo Finance that normally they're great. Normally, I really like them, but not having all the answers today. So let's see what they've got in terms of financials. Next, we are looking for EBITDA. Now this they should have because this is what in the world? Where in the world is their EBITDA? They should have it, but I don't see it right here. Normally, it's right under financials and income statement. So let's look it up. I wonder if Yahoo Finance is off. The other thing that's interesting is Maine is a financial company, right? They do loans and stuff. So their financial companies do end up doing reporting a little bit differently from time to time on certain things. And so maybe that's what we're running into a bit of. But this is still weird to me that it's so off on Yahoo Finance. Capital EBITDA. EBITDA 2023. Quarterly EBITDA. Yeah, but I want annual. Okay, let's look at macro trends because we could use that. Quarter and annual. Let's look at these two. So EBITDA. Yep, that's fine. Trailing 12 months. This is what I want to see right here. Trailing 12 months. As of 2024. Yep. Okay. So EBITDA. That's the number I want right here. Is just trailing 12 months, this top row, and I want it over all time, and it's 0.460 billion. So 0.460 billion. So much, much smaller. Now that is still, $460 million in the last 12 months. But that is much, much smaller than we've seen on some of these other companies, right? Much, much smaller earnings. Now, I mean, this is a smaller company, right? $4 billion market cap versus 54 versus 175, right? So there are some differences here, but that's the one we were looking for there. I kind of wondered though if this has EBITDA on here. Increase, yeah. I mean, they're showing a lot of stuff here, but that's not what I want. Operating results. Yeah, okay. So this is more of a quarterly summary of earnings. And well, not just earnings, but the financial picture in general from their website. So that's kind of interesting. I do kind of wonder though if they've got EBITDA on here. If we go to the financial information tab, and oh yeah, but I don't really want to try to read through all this. I'll show you guys this really quick so that you can see it. This is a 10-page document with their earnings announcement. And this is kind of cool. It shows a lot of information, right? Return on equity. That's something that people look at sometimes. Kind of interesting. But investment income, interest income. Yeah, this is cool. This is kind of cool. So if you ever have time, this would be an interesting thing to go look through. I'm not going to go through it right now. Average EBITDA. That's interesting. Investment portfolio. Okay, so this is the EBITDA of the companies that they invest in. I think is what they're looking at here. That's kind of fun. But right, financial things do look a little different. So, yeah, I don't know why though. It's still not showing investment income expenses. Huh. Net assets, liabilities. Okay, this is cool. This is the actual financials that you get these numbers from, right? This is the statement of operations. This here's the balance sheets, right? And consolidate. They simplify it so that you can actually read them a little bit. But this is kind of cool, right? Yeah. These are cool. So anyway, I got a little distracted, but you know, if you ever get a chance, that's an interesting sort of thing to look at. Gosh, I don't know why this is so strange today on EBITDA, but or on really all of this, but let's see anyway if Yahoo Finance has revenues. Hey, we have revenues. So from 2021. So anyway, we've got revenues, so we can look at that and see how revenues are trending, and that is wild. Look at that 2020 to 2024 trailing 12 months revenue. That's wild. So this ought to be a very, very interesting little graph when we pull this up here. So I'm excited to see this, and then we'll kind of call it. But what's interesting is, yeah, these numbers are just harder to find here, which I don't like. But is that financial investing company? Some very, very interesting things we're seeing here on revenues. The potentially negative growth rate in the future I don't like. So if I were really going to invest a lot into this company, or invest a substantial portion of my account into this company, this might be one that I would look into a little bit deeper. There are some things I really like here, right? Like that 6% dividend yield, pretty good. That $5.36 earnings per share, pretty good. PE ratio, pretty good. Beta, not really terribly important on each stock, but there's some interesting and appealing things here. So anyway, let's look at graphing this, and then we'll see if we actually want to buy one share. I think I probably will buy at least one share. I mean, I already basically know what this chart's gonna look like. So we got our information, but the question here is, yeah, oh, there. Perfect. So I'm just gonna drop this down, I think, for the moment, and we will call this. Yeah, that's wild. We'll call it main revenue trend. Um, and this is like some big increase in revenue, right? We're looking down here, at a lot lower numbers than we're getting to. And again, these are all, in thousands, I believe. Yeah, all numbers in thousands. So, right, this is 540,000 thousands, right? So, if we wanted the real number, right, we could just say, okay, what's your actual revenue? You just do that number times 1,000, and we got to actually make it a formula so it'll show for us. And then, hey, let's make that a dollar amount. Boom. So $540 million is their last 12-month revenue. So anyway, not tiny numbers, but really interesting to see, right? Compared to over here where, hey, this is 178, where like that's a much, much bigger number here that we're seeing on some of these other companies. So kind of interesting, but some appealing things here. So I think what I'll end up doing is I'll buy one share. I sort of doubt that I'm going to want to invest bigger than that in this. In terms of I don't want to put a huge portion of my account into this stock because that negative growth expectation is kind of concerning. It's a financial company. That's not the end of the world to me, right? You can invest in financial companies. That's not a huge deal. And I do like the dividend, but I don't like that negative growth expectation that we saw. That's a little concerning to me. So anyway, something to look at. So we'll go ahead and go look at it. It's dropping right now. Again, this is not really a good buy point. But for the sake of the example, and we can kind of see these dividend payments and all that. Oh, that dividend payment was today. That's a bummer. I could have gotten it if I bought yesterday. But hey, whatever. That's okay. So we'll buy one share just as an example here as we're doing the analysis because I want to show the whole picture and show what this looks like. Now, again, this is not really one that I would love to buy normally. That's cool. This stock has a bid and ask spread too, which is interesting. So I'll come down 1 cent on that. Put it as a limit order today. We're buying one. It'll cost $48.41, right? So $48 for me, not the end of the world. I'm certainly okay. Certainly willing to consider parting with that for the sake of showing you guys what this looks like. This is kind of cool too. We'll see if it pops me in. But what's cool is if you set a limit order, you can just move it on Thinkorswim. So this is pretty cool. I can set it at, let's put it at 45. And then you can see, boom, hey, here's your summary, and it changes. And I say, yep, that all looks good. Send, boom, then it gets in. I wanted to show you guys that yesterday. Let me show you today. That's cool. So anyway, kind of a long one today. I know going through all this, but today, kind of cool to see. We got our one share here of Maine, so we can mark our row. And now we are in all of these companies. Again, really, this is not a spot that I would really want to buy. And really, most of these have not been at spots that I want to buy. But for the sake of the example, I think it's kind of cool to go through and say, hey, what does this look like? How does the analysis work? And looking at an intraday, buy point, this is not great. I don't love also on Maine the the long term. It looks like it has some room to drop here. On the daily, it certainly looks like it has some room to drop on the weekly as well. So, this is not really what I would consider to be a great buy point, and that negative earnings potential or that negative growth potential is concerning to me as well. So, don't love Maine as an investment overall. So, probably I'll say, hey, not really looking to get. So, I'm just going to add that note on here, honestly, right? Say, hey, I don't love where this is at right now. Right now, overall. So, I'm okay with having the one share, right? It's not. Oh, they made it a formula. I don't love the look of this. I don't mind having the one share, right? That's cool. I'll get my 6% annual dividend. That actually is pretty cool. The dividend on this is interesting, and I've had some people that I know really like trading or investing in Maine because that dividend, like it's a pretty good payer. So that's cool, but. That alone is really not enough for me to be interested in buying this with a larger portion of my account. So, I'll add that note. And as we look at these, hey, that's a good thing to keep in mind. The technicals don't really line up. The negative growth expectations are concerning. So, yeah, I don't know. Kind of interesting, but cool to see how what this actually looks like when you see one that doesn't look as good as some of these others have been. At a cursory glance, all these others kind of look okay to me. Which is good. But Main Street, a little less so. little less so. So very interesting. Hopefully it's helpful. Next week on Monday is my plan. We'll be looking at Home Depot, so we'll take a look here at Home Depot and see if we want to invest there or not. Right, much more expensive stock compared to some of these lower dollar ones from 10 to about $50 was the highest we've gone so far, and they were jumping up to 360. So should be fun to watch. Should be fun to see what this looks like here next week. So looking forward to making that video, and we will see you guys here next week for our next investment analysis. Until then, happy trading and happy investing.